Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. The ISIS takeover of another major Iraqi city has U.S. politicians and the media playing the blame game. Who's responsible for the worsening situation there? President George W. Bush or President Barack Obama? Gary Lane has the story.
The taking of Ramadi was the biggest gain for ISIS this year.
They've sent in huge numbers of vehicle-borne IEDs, big trucks, massive amounts of explosion, and they've destroyed the place.
It seemed that ISIS was on the run after the Iraqi government retook the city of Tikrit last March. But as they did in Mosul last June, Iraqi soldiers fled from the advance of ISIS in Ramadi. The Islamic State's control over the capital city of the Anbar province in Iraq is now calling into question the Iraqi government's ability to stop ISIS and the Obama administration's strategy of airstrikes only. Senator John McCain says the United States needs more boots on the ground in Iraq to stop ISIS. A recent CNN poll showed only about half of Americans believe current U.S. policy will lead to the defeat of ISIS, and 80% say ISIS poses a serious threat to the United States. The ISIS victory comes as some members of the U.S. media are calling into question President Bush's decision to go to war in Iraq. They're asking declared and potential Republican presidential candidates if, knowing what Americans know now, did Bush make the right decision?
Based on what we know now, I think everyone agrees.
Was it a mistake? Was it a mistake to go to war with Iraq?
It was.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I understand, but it's not the same question.
But that's the question I'm asking you. Was it a mistake to go?
It was not a mistake for the president to decide to go into Iraq because at the time he was told.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you.
In hindsight,
yes.
No, the world is a better place because Saddam Hussein is not there.
So was it
I
a
wouldn't
mistake
characterize
or not?
it. But I don't understand the question you're asking.
I'm asking you, knowing everything, as we sit here in 2015.
But that's not the way presidents don't. A president cannot make a decision on what someone might know in the future.
But that's what I'm asking you.
Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal is considering a run, but is yet to declare his presidential candidacy. He says a hypothetical question about the past is not the right question to ask at this moment in time.
The reason we have problems with Iraq today is not George W. Bush's strength, it is because of President Obama's weaknesses. The reason we have instability today is that this president, President Obama, created a void there.
Absent from the hard hypothetical questions about Iraq, Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. She's answered less than a dozen media questions since launching her campaign last month, and hasn't answered a reporter's question in weeks on any subject. And many analysts still say President Obama made a mistake by cutting back on American troops in Iraq. So what America did in Iraq and mistakes by both the Bush and Obama administrations are likely to get more media attention and scrutiny as the 2016 presidential campaign heats up, as will the question of what needs to be done to defeat ISIS. Gary Lane, CBN News.
ISIS has already established its Islamic caliphate in Iraq and Syria, but it will not stop there. Its vision encompasses the entire world, and ISIS has made no secret of its desire to strike right here in America. As Eric Stakelbeck reports, it's putting foot soldiers in place to make that dark vision a reality.
It's been called the first ISIS attack on American soil, when two ISIS supporters attempted to storm a Mohammed cartoon drawing contest and murder everyone inside earlier this month in Garland, Texas. The Islamic State was quick to claim responsibility. The attackers, both American citizens, were killed by a police officer before they had a chance to carry out their plan. But the attempted attack in Texas may have been a sign of things to come. From Pennsylvania to Illinois to Ohio to Minnesota to Kansas, federal authorities have arrested close to a dozen ISIS supporters in recent weeks.
We're very definitely in a new environment because of ISIL's effective use of social media, the internet, which has the ability to reach into the homeland and possibly inspire others. Because of the use of the internet, we could have little or no notice in advance of an independent actor attempting to strike.
In the wake of the attack in Texas, FBI Director James Comey said that there are potentially thousands of American citizens that now follow ISIS online. Comey has also said that the FBI is now conducting investigations into ISIS-related activity in all 50 U.S. states. In addition, U.S. authorities say some 180 U.S. citizens have traveled overseas to join ISIS, and at least 40 of them have already returned.
What they say is that their first obligation is to go to the caliphate. But if they feel that they're unable to do that, that they'll be arrested at the airport, that's when they carry out an attack here in the United States.
Abdurrahman Sheikh Mohammed was one who made it to Syria. The Columbus, Ohio resident trained with an Islamic terror group and then returned to the United States with orders to attack the homeland. He was arrested before he had the chance. Mohammed had been on U.S. authorities' radar before he left for Syria. That's why terrorism expert Patrick Poole says he should have never made it that far.
They allow him to apply for a passport, allow him to travel to Turkey. From there, he goes into Syria, trains, comes back, and he's wandering the streets of Columbus for 8 months.
Like a growing number of American ISIS recruits, Mohammed was of Somali descent. Most hail from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, an area with the largest Somali Muslim population in North America.
We've also got to revisit these visas, these humanitarian visas. We have so many people here from places like Somalia with major Islamic terror problems, and we keep letting them into the country. Why are we doing that?
National security expert Ryan Morrow told CBN News that's one way the United States is heading down a dangerous path.
You'll have Sharia patrols in places like the UK, and that's not what we're facing here in the United States, so it's hard for us to believe that that's where we're headed. But if you want to see the future of the United States, you have to look at Europe.
The goal of ISIS and its growing network of followers in the West is to turn American and European cities into guerrilla war zones, with attacks similar to those seen recently in Ottawa, Paris, Sydney, and Texas occurring on a regular basis. Former Pentagon spokesman J.D. Gordon told CBN News that to defeat this threat, the Obama administration must first acknowledge that it exists.
The White House can't even name radical Islam as the enemy. Radical Islam's trying to wipe us out, and the White House, Barack Obama, won't even mention it.
Ignoring the threat won't make it go away. ISIS recently boasted of 71 trained soldiers in 15 different U.S. states and promised that the attack in Texas was only the beginning. Eric Stakelbeck, CBN News, Washington.
An Illinois congressman is speaking up for religious minorities in Iran and urging senior congressional leaders to take action to protect them. Randy Hultgren wants to reauthorize an amendment to preserve a secure pathway to asylum for religious minorities under attack by Iran. In a letter, Hultgren wrote, "Time after time, the Islamic Republic of Iran has shown a clear intention to impose its extremist views upon all Iranians, regardless of the faith of its citizens. We must act to make sure religious minorities are protected from the unjust Iranian regime." The Senate unanimously approved legislation promoting international religious freedom. The measure requires the White House to take religious freedom into account when negotiating trade deals with other countries. If signed into law, it would be the first time in history that religious freedom considerations would be required for international trade discussions. New details now surrounding the deadly biker gang Brawl in Waco, Texas. Authorities say they sent warnings earlier this month that tensions were growing between the two gangs that clashed Sunday. 9 people died, 18 were injured, and officers arrested nearly 200 suspected gang members. Police say the rival gangs were meeting Sunday at a restaurant so members could settle some of their differences. About an hour later in the restroom, the fighting began.
Nearly 35 years of law enforcement experience. This is the most violent and most gruesome scene that I have dealt with.
It was really, really scary. They said people outside the doors had guns.
The FBI is calling outlaw biker groups a serious national domestic threat. The U.S. State Department is making a proposal to post thousands of the emails from former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton by next January. The move comes in response to a federal court filing from a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit by Vice News. The State Department says that after it reviews the emails, some will be posted online. The review will take until the end of the year. Clinton says she wants the department to release the emails as soon as possible. Irish voters will decide Friday whether the country will become the first to add same-sex marriage to their constitution through popular vote. People in the capital of Dublin are divided ahead of the vote. Supporters say it's about equality, while opponents say same-sex marriage is not fair to children.
We're such an active generation when it comes to protesting and getting our voice heard, and it feels amazing to be part of history.
Children should have an equal right to a mother and a father where possible. And the clause that we're being asked to vote on on the referendum is that there is no distinction between the relationship that a man forms with a man and a man forms with a woman. And I've had both types of relationship, and I think there is a distinct difference.
Ireland legalized civil partnerships for same-sex couples back in 2011. Students at a Welsh university have voted to ban Bibles from residence halls in the name of multiculturalism. Dorm Bibles are a tradition at Aberystwyth University, Prince Charles's alma mater. But the Daily Mail reports now students are voting to remove the Gideon Bibles from dorm rooms, claiming they could be potentially offensive to non-Christians. James Catford, an alumnus who now leads the Bible Society, says that the answer to a diverse and multicultural society is not to remove all traces of diversity. That seems illiberal and intolerant. Coming up, local police driving military vehicles and the National Park Service deploying SWAT teams. Is America turning into a police state? President Obama is banning the federal government from providing some military-style equipment to local police. Last year, critics argued police in Ferguson, Missouri sent a message of escalation when they used armored vehicles during racially charged protests. Now the president says equipment made for the battlefield should not be a tool of American criminal justice. His move will block the transfer of equipment like grenade launchers, tracked armored vehicles, weaponized aircraft and vehicles, and firearms and ammunition of .50 caliber or higher. The president's move comes as some critics argue America is becoming a police state. The growing use of military-style weapons has had many people afraid of what's going on in government. From Washington to their own communities, Jennifer Wishon looks into this troubling trend.
When we think about crime in our neighborhoods, we don't picture this. While violent crime in America is actually decreasing, hundreds of law enforcement agencies use military-grade equipment to police their streets.
There's a distinct difference between military soldiers and what their mission is, and civilian police and what their mission is supposed to be. And those lines are way beyond blurred.
Cheryl Chumley is author of Police State USA, How Orwell's Nightmare is Becoming Our Reality. Among her concerns is an increase in the use of police SWAT teams, units specifically trained to deal with active shooters and hostage situations. A recent study by the ACLU finds SWAT teams now often deploy to execute search warrants, a decision that has maimed and even killed innocent people. One case in point, 19-month-old Bubu Fonsavan nearly killed last spring in the house where he was sleeping.
It was about 3 in the morning, and then the local SWAT team there busted through the front door, threw a flashbang grenade. They had a no-knock warrant looking for a drug dealer. Threw the grenade, it landed in the baby's crib. The little boy's face was half blown off.
Mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, or MRAPs as they're known, protect American troops from IEDs in war. And today, at least 500 police departments also have them. They come from the federal government through programs designed to offload excess equipment. State and local police departments can get free or discounted military equipment from the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and other agencies. It really took off after 9/11 due to legitimate concerns over the threat of terrorism. Today, nearly 500,000 pieces of military equipment have been transferred to police organizations, including small arms, night vision devices, Humvees, MRAPs, and aircraft. According to Chumley, some police departments have even secured silencers.
A police officer is not a sniper, and I can't imagine any scenario where a civilian police officer would need to sneak up on somebody and shoot them before they have their due process through court.
But it's not just militarized police departments that have some folks worried. Remember this tense standoff between armed supporters of Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy and the Bureau of Land Management?
As I watched that, I just became very uncomfortable looking at what were National Park Service SWAT teams or BLM snipers. And these are regulatory agencies. These aren't law enforcement agencies.
The situation prompted Congressman Chris Stewart to introduce legislation to demilitarize federal regulatory agencies. Most of his state of Utah is owned by the federal government.
Can you think of a regulatory issue that is so urgent that you have to have a SWAT team in and you got to get them in right now? Because there just aren't any.
Dozens of regulatory agencies have firearm and arrest authority, including NOAA, the federal government's weather service, the Department of Education, even the IRS.
It's intimidating to the American people, and it breaks the trust that we should have between the American people and the federal government. And look, that's a fragile thing right now anyway.
Instead of giving machine guns and grenades to the FDA, Stewart and other lawmakers want to leave law enforcement to agencies tasked to deal with it, like the FBI. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Up next, a rude awakening will tell you some of the mistakes people make when saving for retirement and show you how you can avoid them. When it comes to retirement, Americans are not prepared. Experts say nearly half of all of us won't have enough money to live on. So we sent our Heather Sells out to explore how you can avoid common mistakes and make sure you're saving enough.
Little Anderson is not even 1 year old, and his parents are already saving for his college and their retirement.
It's always been a priority because that's the way I was brought up.
For many Americans, though, retirement savings are not a reality, and one big reason is our society promotes spending, instant gratification.
We're absolutely encouraged to spend rather than save. There are encouragements in the tax code, there are encouragements on the TV every night.
Nevin Adams oversees the Retirement Confidence Survey, a fixture for 24 years. The good news, about 2/3 of Americans save for retirement. The bad news, those who save don't usually save enough.
We have estimated that about 53% of Americans will have enough. They will not run short of money in retirement. Of course, that means that 47% stand, some decent chance of running short of money in retirement.
Some call those crisis numbers. Adams doesn't go that far, but notes if individuals don't plan for the future, it will cost the rest of us.
At some level, many of them, as they are today, will be dependent on some of those the social safety nets, whether it's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those kind of programs. Those programs have cost.
The retirement survey reveals some of the biggest savings mistakes that people make. They include simply not saving and not saving enough. Financial advisor Robin Toll says many people lack an overall plan.
People spend more time planning their next vacation than they do retirement.
Another common mistake, not knowing how much you need to save. Adams thinks for many people, the fear of needing a huge amount for retirement prevents them from even figuring out that number.
I think they're afraid to know what that answer is. And the reality is, for a lot of people, the answer is probably not as bad as you think it is.
I come back with a question and say, okay, you tell me how long you plan to live and what your monthly expenses are. And pretty much it can be calculated out.
ChooseToSave.com has just one of the growing online retirement calculators that helps you quickly figure out a course of action. From the start of their marriage, Amanda and Eddie Grizzard started saving. They used a financial planner to determine how much they needed. Amanda says she was inspired by friends and the 700 Club.
I really learned a lot from being around different people. I saw, even Pat on a show said, if you'll start saving this amount of money, 25 years from now, you'll have a nice little nest egg.
On top of their automatic monthly contributions, the Grizzards add to their savings when he gets overtime pay. And they try to live frugally.
She teases me because I take my lunch to work. And, I still brown bag it every day.
The Grizzards also have kept saving even during the bad times. That's another mistake, holding off saving when the markets are down. Toll says many developed that mindset during the recent recession.
I think people have been hesitant investing, saving, because they said, hey, I built this money up and then I lost it. But I encourage people, you look and say, since March of 2009, the stock market's gone up over 200%.
Another trap, overestimating how long you think you'll work.
The survey has shown very consistently over its 24-year history that workers consistently think they're going to work longer than retirees tell us they were actually able to work.
So follow these tips. Plan on living longer than you think you might as lifespans continue to grow. Save extra for health care because those costs are tough to estimate. Maximize your employer's 401k match and look into a Roth retirement account. And lastly, know why you are saving. Paint a picture of your retirement. It will sharpen your focus and motivation. For the Williams, investing is part of living a godly life, and saving, even while starting their family, brings peace.
The one thing that we've always said is that we will always be good stewards of what God's given us, and we'll always, I think, maintain that money in a way that would be glorifying, i.e. not living outside our means.
For me, it's energizing to know that we have so much time. It's so far in the future, but it gives us a lot of time to continue to add to our savings. So for me, that's encouragement.
In fact, the Williams are even thinking beyond retirement. They're following Proverbs 13:22, which says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That means planning not only for their retirement and for little Anderson, but for his children as well. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Operation Blessing has been helping Texas residents recover from last weekend's deadly weather. Tornadoes in the city of Van killed 2 people and left a path of destruction. Operation Blessing has supplied disaster relief and coordinated volunteers to clear debris and to aid storm victims, especially the elderly, the ill, disabled, and single mothers. Hundreds of determined volunteers have been helping homeowners, including a group of high school students who skipped a trip to an amusement park to help with cleanup efforts. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to its website, that is ob.org. And finally this hour, we leave you with a message of encouragement, and it's my hope that you will post, tag, tweet, and share what we like to call our Tuesday Tweetable. And here it is. You can't walk in faith and fear at the same time. Choose faith, knowing it is what God requires, and His perfect love casts out all fear. So be bold today, and in your walk, allow faith to be your vision to see around any troubling circumstances. That is going to do it for now for CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you join us again right here next time. Make this a terrific Tuesday.